Hi, it's Chris from Epix Systems here, and I've put this video together today to show you the workings of the mobile app and some of the most commonly used screens and processes that a lot of our contractors use. And the idea of this is to give you a flavour of what our mobile app can do and how it can help your organisation. Our app is developed for the Android system, and so I've just created a home screen similar to what your engineers may well see on their device, and I've placed a shortcut to the Epix Markus mobile app here on the desktop. So simply clicking on that will launch our app. When you open the app, you're taken to the login screen, and on this screen here you can see the name of the operative whose device this is. In this case I've set it to a dummy operative who's a plumber, but that would normally be the operative's name. We have a password entry field here, and down here we've got the version number of the app, and here would be your own company name. So to log in, we place a password here into the password field, and then we press next, and that will log us in. Now the green screen you can see in front of you is the dial screen. Some people let's call this the connector base, and what this is showing you is on a green screen a successful connection to the back office system, meaning that data has flowed between back office and mobile successfully. If you had a fail, then that would have been a red screen, and I'll cover that a little later on. So we'll press next now to move on to the next screen. Now the next page is the clock on screen, and on the clock on screen you'll see the current time and an option to clock on. Now we can also bring in here some odometer readings so you can record vehicle mileage, and the expectation is this screen is used to begin the operative's working day. So they would clock on either at home to begin work, or if they go to the depot first, then they may clock on when they arrive at the depot. We'll just press clock on here, and the next page this will take you to is the start of day checks screen. Now the start of day checks screen appears, as the title would suggest, once a day, and that happens after you've clocked onto the device. So these are sorts of questions that you would ask the operatives only the once, and they are not directly related to a job. So these could be, as the example in front of you is the vehicle checks, or it could be as simply as reminding the operatives to make sure they've got the correct PPE for their working day. So to give you an example, the vehicle checks questions in this example here, if I click into the external vehicle condition, I've got some basic questions that I must answer with OK, defective or not applicable, and these are relating to the roadworthiness of my vehicle. So I would go around my van and do the checks as necessary. Once I've completed them, I would then press next, and then I can also check vehicle fluids, and again similarly I could answer questions as OK and then press next. As you can see here, I've got a green tick to indicate that these survey items have been done, and I can now proceed and press next, and the device will do another dial to base, and again a green screen to indicate a successful dial. So pressing next again, this takes us onto the places to go screen. And just to quickly explain this screen, we've got on the top here a menu button. Over here the circular arrows are a dial or connector base, so if I press that you'll see the familiar dial screen and the green screen to indicate a success. Here in the blue bar at the top of the screen we've got the current status of our operative. So at the moment I have just clocked on, so I'm currently at status clock on, and again below all this I've now got my list of jobs. Now the list of jobs appear in date and time order for when your back office have instructed you to go. So these are now showing in date and time order with the earliest first. The menu button, if we quickly press on there, this is where you'll find some options, and now these options are configurable depending on what version of the app you're using and whether you have certain options switched on. However, the settings, we won't go into there, but this is where you would configure the device for the operative. We can filter our jobs list on the places to go screen here by looking at all of them, places to go to, completed ones or stored jobs, or basically any of the statuses that the jobs may be at. All photos, this is useful to mention, if we click on there, this would have a list of photographs on it that have not yet been sent back to the office. So if you've taken several photographs on your job and you've dialed the job back as a completed job, but the office haven't yet seen pictures, there's a good chance that they could be here, and you would see a thumbnail and the images listed down here. And all you need to do is leave your app open, and those will eventually dial back, and the speed of that will really depend on your level of signal that you've got to the device. So if I just press back to take us back to our places to go screen. As I mentioned here, this is our current status, but if we click on this, we can choose a non-job activity, or we can clock off. So at the end of the day we would use this option, but the non-job activities, we just quickly go into those. This is where we can put ourselves onto a task that isn't a job specifically. So if I drop down that list, as you can see here, I've got a very long list of options available to me. We can customize this to your organization, so you could have a short list if you wish. But let's say, for example, I was going to a medical appointment. I could select that option here. I could provide the time that I think I'm going to finish this. So let's say I'm going to finish at 09:30. I could also provide some notes. So I could say, for example, that this was the dentist's, and then I would press next. This would do a dial back to base again, and a green screen indicates a successful dial. And as we can now see here, I'm currently on a medical appointment on my device. I now won't be able to accept any of my other jobs until I end this activity. Meanwhile, in the back office, the operative status widget, which displays the list of operatives and where they are, this will give you the indication on the dummy operative that they are on a medical appointment. They began that activity at this time, and the estimated time that they think they're going to finish is the time I specified when I put myself onto the medical appointment. And this just helps the back office know where everybody is and what time they estimate to finish. Now back on the mobile device, you can see that we've now got a task at the bottom here that's just displaying what we're doing at the moment, which is our medical appointment. But clicking here to end this activity, we can currently now end to say we're finished with our medical activity. And our status is now updated, and we can now move on to demonstrating a job. Now back onto the mobile app, as previously mentioned, the places to go screen lists where you're going in date and time order, so you should begin with the first in the list. But just to explain what this screen is showing you, as you can see, we've got the customer name of where the job is going to be, the address of where it is you're going, a brief summary of the job description of what you are going to do when you get there, and the date and the time. Now you can see here on this next job in the list, we've got a warning symbol and also a paperclip. The symbol here indicates that there is a note on the job that you must read. It's worthy of flagging to your attention. And the paperclip indicates that there is a attachment of some kind, whether that be a document or a picture that the office have given you, or a previous engineer who's been on site has left for you. So if I begin by clicking on my first job of the day, this will take me into the job details screen where I can review the job and see the details of the work. So working down, we can see the job number, the customer who I'm working for, the type of asset or site or property, the address that I'm going to along with the postcode, and then a contact name and telephone number of a contact for this address. There's a telephone symbol over here, which if I was to tap this button, this will then list who I want to call. So if there are multiple contacts, I'll get a list. I can then choose that person, and then it will dial the number. We then get some additional details about the job itself, so the priority and when we're required to have finished, and also again the job description. Now if you're working to a sales code list or a schedule of rate, then you might also expect to see these listed here. So if we tap on there, we can see on this particular job we have SOR code 631351, and we're to deliver one of those. And any additional notes that there might be on this job would be listed here. Now we have at the bottom here options to go back, reject the job, or accept. So tapping back simply takes us back to the places to go screen. Accepting the job would accept it, and we would then travel to site and carry out the work. The reject button, if we just quickly go in there, this allows us to end the visit at this point, and usually the reason for this would be that you're just physically not able to attend site on this job. So I'm going to end this visit now as a van trouble. We might take a photograph of, say, the flat tyre if that was the case, and we would send a note back to the office to explain why it is that you can't attend your visit, and then we would press next. This will then dial back to base again, and as we can see now, the job that we had has now disappeared and has been sent back to the office with the note that we provided, and if we sent a picture, and also with a status to indicate why we haven't been. So let's now assume that our van is fixed, and we can then go on to our next job. So if I click on the job here for 10 Knowsley Place, all the details above that we've discussed earlier, however, can we see now we have a note about access. So this would be the warning symbol on the front of the page here, this one here. So if we click back into that job, we can see that there is a note that we should be aware of, that we need to knock loudly on the door as the tenant is hard of hearing. So let's press accept now to travel to site and do this work. So we're then taken to the estimated time of arrival page, and this is where the operative can provide an estimated journey time so that the back office know roughly what time they will be arriving on site to deal with the job at 10 Knowsley Place. Now on this screen we can launch Google Maps by pressing on the map and compass, and that would then act as a sat-nav to the site, and it would also give them an idea of an estimated time of arrival if they don't know. Again, we can call the resident should you wish them to call them to say that they're on their way, and here using the plus and minus buttons we can add an estimated journey time, and these go up in 5-minute intervals, or we can simply click in there and manually type something if you wish. So I'm going to say this is going to take us 20 minutes to get to site. Now at any point we can abort the visit, and this could again be for these reasons, but I'm going to go back and I am going to travel to site. So I'm going to press next. And again we do a dial back to base. Meanwhile in the back office we can see that our operative is now at status en route, and he began that one at this time and he's estimated to finish 20 minutes later, which is the time that they said. So if the resident was to phone and ask where the operative was, you would be able to provide them with a rough guideline that they will possibly be with you around 9 o'clock. This is the job number that they're travelling to, so again if you're wanting to see where your operatives are going or what they're currently working on, you can click on that and that will then take you to the job sheet for the job that they're doing. Meanwhile on the mobile app, the screen that the operative will now be on is the en route screen, and here they can launch Google Maps again to navigate to site if they need to, and they can also, if required, call the resident, but really the expectation is that they would now be travelling to site, so the phone would be away wherever it lives in the van and they would be driving to site. Again, you can always abort the visit at any point. Should you say be called away to an emergency job, you can abort, and the option for that occasion would probably be rearranged, and that job would then be sent back to the back office, and then as the operative they could then accept the next job. However, I'm going to arrive on site now, and as I arrive on site I'm then presented with the health and safety warning screen. This will list any site-specific health and safety warnings that there may well be. If there aren't any, then there is usually a standard message, which is the one here, which references the warning that all sites may contain asbestos. But as we arrive on site we can then tick to say that we've read and understand all those issues above, and then clicking next to begin work. However, we could also abort the visit, so if we arrive on site to discover that the resident isn't in, we could record this visit as a no access, and we could use the camera function to take a photograph of the no access card that you're posting through the letterbox. However, in this case I'm going to tick to confirm that I've read all health and safety warnings, and I'm going to press next to proceed to the job. Now the next page that appears is an optional screen, and this is where you can record the answers to any risk assessments you want to give to your operatives. So I've got two sections on my particular risk assessment, and so I'll click into the first one to give you an idea of the sorts of things this does. So this is a generic risk assessment to be carried out before you undertake any works, and so I'll let you read the questions at your own leisure, but what you can do here is you can have buttons configured to be either yes, no. We could have pick lists of text values, you can have numeric values. The surveys are covered in a separate video, but basically any of the normal survey responses or survey question answer types, we can have those as well. So I'm going to quickly go down this survey and say that I have carried out my own risk assessment, that I haven't got the correct PPE, and that I've got all the other things there fine, but because I haven't got my PPE, it's not safe to proceed. So the last question here is very different. If we answered no to this one and then press next, we can see here that we've been told to stop, and what that means is if we try and proceed next to go onto the next screen and start the visit, we're told that it's not safe to proceed, and that's because we failed the risk assessment. So if I then pressed OK, this would take us to an end of visit screen where we will not be able to proceed to the site, where we can't see the job details and we won't be able to record any work. So the job gets sent back to the office because of the failed risk assessment. I'm going to press back at this stage though, because I want to show us the job. So I'm going to re-answer that question as yes I have, and yes it is safe to proceed. And any other hazards that may be present on site. So as I said, we've got some text fields here, different buttons because of the different units of measure I added, a pick list of two different options again, and we could add further hazards should we wish. So if I press the add button, I could bring in another lot of hazards should that be relevant. However, at this stage I would like to then proceed to the job, and this will do a dial back to base, and on the next screen we can then provide our estimated time to complete the job. Now the back office will have already logged the job against an SOR code that may have a minute value to it, or there may be a standard length of time associated to all your jobs. But if you're looking at this job and you think it's going to take more or less time than that, you can adjust this, and this will be reflected on the operative status widget in the back office. So let's say I want to put this down to 1.5 hours. I can then start work. Now the screen that you can see now is the job details screen, and this is where the operative will get the opportunity to review the job again, and they would generally now be about to undertake the work. Now the first thing that a lot of our customers like their operatives to do is to use the camera button to take a photograph of the works that they're about to do. So I should take a photograph before I begin work, and you would then provide a description of what it was that you were taking a photograph of. Using this button here allows you to take pictures using the camera of the phone, and then you can just grab those from the gallery using this. The rest of this screen is all job details again, and there will be previous notes about other visits, anything like that. We can also abort the visit as well. But I'm going to press next now, having carried out the work, and the next screen that appears is the survey questions screen. Now the survey screen is also an optional one, and the survey questions that appear on this screen can be tailor-made specifically for the trade type of the operative and the job. So for example, if you have a set of electrical surveys that you want only the electricians to see, then those can be made available for all electricians, and the plumbers therefore wouldn't see those. Now I've got this survey screen configured with a generic end of visit survey. So at the end of this particular visit we're going to ask our operatives if they had any near misses, did they leave the work area tidy, that kind of thing. But these of course can be anything you wish. You could have this as a retrospective risk assessment where all the risk types and the control measures that you might have added whilst on site, you could have added these in at this point. And we could have survey questions like pat testing, commissioning surveys and so on. But I'm going to answer these questions using the buttons. So if I toggle between them, the answer changes. And then I shall press next. And this takes us then onto the ordered work screen. Now you may or may not have this screen turned on depending if you're using the SOR codes or not, but because I am, I've got the ordered SOR line here with the ordered quantity of 1, and on this delivery I want to say that I delivered that 1. So I could click here on the cross to turn it into a tick, or alternatively I could overtype the value in the delivery column here. So for example, if I was to have delivered 2 of that item, I could change that by clicking in there and changing that value as necessary. So clicking next then takes us onto the variation work screen. Now if you didn't have the previous screen switched on, you may well land on this page straight away. Also, if you're not using SOR codes on the device, then you're likely to see on this screen a big white text box that you can then free type the work that you did on site in that box. But because we've got SOR codes switched on, we can press add here at the bottom, and this will then allow us to search using the search box here for a particular SOR code if we wanted to add any variation works to this job. But if we didn't want to add a particular code, for example, and we wanted to add a manual free type box, we could search for the word manual, or maybe internal, depending on how you've got that set up in your system. Select the relevant code, press add, and then tap back. And then what we can do is we can click on this grey box here, we can clear the notes, and then we can free type any text we like in this box. So I might like to put in this one that whilst on site we replaced the mixer tap, for example. So I'll say I replaced mixer for now. I could of course adjust the quantity of what I've done, and I can add further SOR codes or indeed any manual codes if I want to, but then I would then simply hit next to move on to the next screen in the process. The material screen is often known as the parts used screen, and this is where you would record any materials or parts that you used on the job. Now, similar to the variation screen that you saw previously, if you have any part codes or material items or van stocks listed on the mobile app for you to select, then those will be available in the list by clicking the add button here. If you don't have any of those, then you could end up with a big free type white text box where you could simply manually type what you've used. So I'm going to press the add button, and as you can see I have a selection of part codes that I could choose, but if none of the ones that I wanted was available when searching, I could click on the manual code and then press add, then press back to take me back to this screen, which is very similar to the variation work screen you've just seen, where I can then click into this grey box here, clear the text, and then I can free type what I used. So I shall say that I used a new washer and a new mixer. Then I would press save, and I could adjust quantities as appropriate here, or I could add further items used, and then I shall press next. And this then takes us on to the end of visit screen. The end of visit screen is where we provide the status for the end of our visit. So the commonly used options here would be complete, part complete, maybe you were out of time, referring it back to a supervisor, or perhaps the job needed some parts, or if none of these matched what you needed, you could simply say other, and for any one of these you can provide notes in this field here to describe why you've chosen the status you have done. Also, there are some additional options down here for retaining and leaving a card. So by, let's say for example, if I was to choose the option for part complete and retain, what that would do is it would end the visit as a part complete visit, but the retain would mean that I don't send the job back to the back office, I keep that on my device. So you could use that, for example, if the resident was leaving for a few moments to go and collect a child from school, say, and you wanted to come back in half an hour, you could retain that because you knew you were coming back. However, most of the time you would always end your visit with a status where you don't retain it, and that way the job gets sent back to the office and the office can reissue it if needed to yourself or another operative. So I'm going to end this visit as a complete, And as you can see at the top of the screen here, we've also got the option to browse our phone gallery for photos we may have taken whilst on site, and also we can use the camera to take some photographs of work done. So if I press the camera button again and take yet another photograph of my phone, I can save that, and then I can say that this is the work that I've completed. I then save, and I can of course take as many photos as I want. Then I press next. So the next screen that you would then see is the signature screen for the operative or the engineer. So this is where the operative would sign the work done. And then we press next. This is an optional screen, and this is the customer QA survey. So you could ask the resident if they wanted to carry out a customer satisfaction questionnaire. If they don't want to do that, then there is a button down here for skipping that. And also perhaps if the job's say an external works or a void property where the customer may not be present, again the engineer could skip this at this point. Let's go in and accept that then, and now the operative would hand the phone to the resident or whoever's signing for the works, and they can then answer some questions about the visit, and these questions of course can be customizable to suit your requirements. So I shall give our operative 5 stars. Very happy with the work, and I could provide some additional text if I want to. So we can have as many or few questions as you want, and there are different response types. We could have slider bars, star ratings, or we could just simply have free type text as you've seen here. So I'm going to press next, and this then takes us into the customer signature screen. Now the customer signature screen, if the customer's name is already on the job, then this should appear here, and the customer would then sign for the work. Now if that name for any reason was the incorrect name, we do have an option down here where you can change that. Also, there is the ability to change the signer type. So if I just quickly click on that, we get some options here. So for example, if the works are part complete, then the customer would not want to sign for a completed job, so you could select part complete, and that would allow you to proceed onto the next screen without having a signature obtained. Similarly, if the customer wasn't present, perhaps it was external work, or maybe they even refused or unable to sign, and again for a void property, you can choose the relevant signer type to allow you to move on without obtaining a signature. However, you would ordinarily want to get a signature, and so the customer would then sign and then press next. And finally, this is an optional screen again. This is the after visit travel screen. So this would appear at the end of every visit, but you would only ever really use this at the end of the last visit of the day. So where you would like to apportion the travel time taken to travel from your last job to either home or the depot, that would put those travel costs against that visit. So if you want to capture that sort of a cost, and that's how you would like to cost your jobs, the operative would simply leave themselves on this screen until such time as they arrived at their destination when they ended their shift, and then they would hit finished. But if you don't have that screen, then at the point that the customer signs on the previous step, then this would simply dial the job back and the visit would be complete. So if I mark this job as finished now, we'll do a dial, and we get a successful connection, and then when I hit next, as we can see, my job now has gone as it's been sent back to the back office. So the engineer would then simply work their way down the remaining jobs for the day and repeat the process as you've just seen. As ever, if you've got any questions at all regarding this, then do give us a shout. We'd be happy to help.